Once it's up, I'll play the video. Loading, loading, loading. Here we go. Once it's up,
Gaza didn't have 1 minute of self-determination despite the Zionist lie that they left and Palestinians ruined their own lives. It's a right-wing lie that we got to dissect with the truth, which is that for 100 years, there's been a settler colonial project. For 75 years, there's been ethnic cleansing of self-determination. We got to tell the truth about that. They left and Palestinians ruined their own lives. It's a right-wing lie we got to dissect with the truth. For 100 years, there's been a. What does it mean to tell the truth? For 75 years, tell the truth is to say that the problem is not that Palestinians don't want peace. The problem is settler colonial apartheid states don't recognize that there will be never peace in the land until there is justice for the people. No. And what does justice look like? Justice looks like no more settlements. Justice means getting rid of the current settlements. Justice means Palestinians around the world being able to return to their homes. Justice means equal rights for Palestinians all throughout the land, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. They all deserve freedom and justice and self-determination. Now, telling the truth shouldn't be a difficult thing. The problem is the world keeps telling us lies. The world wants you to believe that Palestinian children are not worth as much as other people's children. The world wants you to believe that any amount of force used against Palestinian people is justifiable. The world wants you to believe that international law applies to everybody except the state of Israel. But we won't let it happen. We won't let it happen. But don't feel too good about yourself, because we're not doing Palestinians a favor by fighting for them. It is our tax dollars. It is our votes. It is our complicity that creates this crisis. So I stand here in solidarity with you, not as a favor, but because it's the right thing to do. But I also stand in solidarity with you because I can't get free until you get free. As long as our police are training Israeli officers, and as long as Israeli officers are training our officers, we will live in hyper-security states that treat every brown person every Black person as an outsider, as a threat, as somebody worthy of death. We got to end the deadly exchange. But we got work to do right now. We ain't ending the deadly exchange tonight. But what we can end tonight is the guns and the bombs. Tonight we demand a ceasefire. Tonight we demand that no more Palestinian children are killed. Tonight we demand that no more hospitals are crumbled. Tonight we demand that no more schools are broken down. It is a violation of international law. It is a violation of human decency. It is a violation of everything we pretend to stand for as a Western nation. We're the only democracy around. Where ain't that though? I ain't seen a democracy yet. It ain't here. Not if students can't be in SJP without getting smeared and doxxed and terrorized. Not if you can't support Palestine without being called an anti-Semite simply because you believe in justice for everybody. We got work to do, family. We demand a ceasefire now. But the work doesn't stop there. We demand decolonization. We demand an end to the occupation. We demand an end to apartheid. We demand a free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. And right now they think we gonna go home. They think we done turned ourselves up, wave some flags, and we gonna go home. No, we gonna make this city hear us. We gonna make this city feel us. We gonna be safe. We gonna be nonviolent, but we gonna tear these streets up with our voices, with our chants, and with our cries for freedom. And what do we want? What do we want? What do we want?
Peace, everybody. Free Mumia, free Jamal, free Mumia, Abu Jamal. Thank you, as always, everybody, for joining us this afternoon for our annual program and event highlighting the struggle to free our dear beloved brother, Mumia Abu Jamal. Thank you all for joining us today. We say free him today. We say free him now. We say free him right now. My name is Brother Gabe. I'm working here today on behalf of the Mobilization for Mumia. And I'm so happy to be here with you all today. We have so much work to do. And more importantly, we have a great program for you all as well. Today's work is a combination. It's a collection. It's a work to also partner with our comrades and family with the campaign to bring Mumia home. I want to bring in Sophia. Sophia, how's everything going today?
Everything is going fine. Thank you, Gabe. Good to see everyone. Good to see folks in the chat. Good to be back in this space with our family in these hard times, but we're together and we will continue to fight. And we want to thank everyone for joining us.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And first of all, we want to do, and some of you all may have seen the list of campaigns that we're going to highlight today during today's program. With that being said, many of us have seen the news or heard the news that our dear beloved elder, senior, former Black Panther leader, Baba Ed Poindexter, did make transition just a couple short days ago at the age of 79 years old, and after 53 years of still being imprisoned, incarcerated. And so with that being said, family, we want to take a moment of silence to acknowledge his legacy, his life, his contribution as he goes on a journey on to the ancestors. Thank you. And also at this time, as you all saw as a part of this conversation, This is a struggle to also be in collaboration and solidarity with the mighty, brilliant, and beautiful Palestinian people and those who are working towards, the destruction of neocolonialism and imperialism all around the world. And so we also want to take another moment of silence to acknowledge the thousands of lives, countless lost in Palestine, in Gaza, those who have been even in the West Bank, who are still under the rubble. We want to take a moment of silence as well for them and give them our vibes, give them our praise, give them our meditations as they also continue to fight. After 73 journalists have been killed and so many more children have been taken from us, let's take a quick moment for our Palestine family as well. Free Gaza. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Free them all, free them all. Free the Congo, free Sudan, free Puerto Rico, free Hawaii, free all oppressed peoples everywhere. Sophia, let's bring in our first speaker, if you will.
Yes, let's do it. Let's bring in Mama Pam.
Hey, all right now, family. Number one, my breathing's not that good today. Free Palestine, from the river to the sea. Palestine shall be free. That's one of the quotes that this government don't want you to say. And Brother Ed Poindexter, and long live the spirit, the work that this brother has put in. Long live our brother spirit, Dr. Ed Poindexter. I say doctor because he took care of many. But what I want to say here is that for the last year and a little over, I've had health issues, and I have not been able to be on the front line as much as I would like to be. But this is my time for thanking people for the dedication and the work to keep our brother Mumia up front, out there, so that he can so that he can get the freedom that he's seeking. We want Mumia to come home healthy. We want him to come home, strong, and that work is continuing. And that's mostly what I have to say. Today is that we need to continue to work. And I have very strong appreciation for all the campaigns that's around the world for Mumia, France, Germany, the French collective, Mama Julia Wright, who does the international work with the UN, the demonstrations that was held this Wednesday, for Mumia, in Mexico and Canada and different other places, and the people who keep Mumia's commentaries alive. I just want to thank, everyone. And the program is an excellent program that was put out. The New York Coalition, the campaign to bring Mumia home, the Mobilization for Mumia, all the different groups throughout the United States, Canada, California, Chicago, Washington. I want to thank. So with that, I'm going to turn the program back over to Brother Gabe and Sister Sophia. Long live the spirit of revolution. And let's stay together to tear this mother down for the sake of all life.
Yes. Mama Pam, thank you for your words. We're happy to have you. We're happy for your words as usual. And yes, we shall continue to tear this down. So on that note, let's get into the program. Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank everyone for being with us throughout a tumultuous year. But again, we continue to stand for Mumia's freedom, that of our Palestinians, brothers and sisters, and of course, that of all political prisoners. We do have a poem reading by the scholar and intellectual Palestinian that was just murdered by the Zionist government, Gabe.
And we say, rest in power, rest in power, rest in power to so many who worked with and knew a leader, educator, a giant, someone whose name now resounds in history at this critical, vital moment of time. Rafat Al-Harir, excuse me if my pronunciation isn't the best. Many of you have seen the poem, but it's important for us to hear this poem now in this moment, called If I Must Die. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale. So let those words resound with all of us as we think about this moment of time and what it means for us, our struggle to not only free Mumia Abu Jamal, free all oppressed people, but to also free Palestine in this critical time. I also want to raise up one of our most long-standing organizers and activists towards Mumia Abu Jamal's freedom, and that is the phenomenal Mama Julia Wright, who couldn't be here today, but many of you know that she is an amazing poet in her own right, who's written about Mumia Abu Jamal and political prisoners in general time and time and time again. And her words always give us a sense of hope and a sense of healing. And so I want to share this piece from her that she wrote specifically for Mumia today. For Mumia, and her prefaces, thanks to Mary Murphy, Amanda Knox, Jasmine Sykes-Kunk, Christopher West, and Johanna Fernandez, without whom the Mumia archives and the exhibit at Brown University would not have seen the light of day. And the poem begins. In the middle of the Mumia carceral archives stands a mock prison cell, the very inhumane size of the solitary confinement he spent over 3 decades in. The center holds his cell. All is identical: the steel bunk, the slab of a table, the hole in the hole of the toilet, and the rationed amount of books allowed in at a time. We are not given a guard's eye view through a peephole, but a whole curated window, less in the light of day, and our shock overexposes this hell. The door is locked so that exhibit visitors cannot enter, paradoxically transforming those who are free into prisoners, excluded from his time-barred reality. Meanwhile, the mock cell is not cordoned off, and I touch its cold stone, and suspending disbelief, I marvel that this tomb became the womb of endless letters, manuscripts, theses, commentaries, poems, art, and music, all available to the community, all character evidence exhibited that Mumia's only crime is his love of our humanity, day in, day out, relentlessly. This cell makes me understand that when space reduces time, becomes the horizon of another world. By the time we leave the eerie silence of Mumia's cage, we find ourselves internalizing the pain of the death by incarceration he still undergoes today. A time always undone, a Sisyphus time, a ticking time, torture, and do you hear the drums? There is a sharpened and quickened beat of the countdown, time to free him. Written by Julia Wright, December 8th, 2023. All rights reserved to Mumia Abu Jamal's children. So thank you, Mama Julia Wright, as always, for your words, for your strength, and for your energy in this moment of time. Sophia?
Yes, yes, thank you again. And we now have a short video, a special feature on Mumia, and we should be having that come up really quickly just to let folks know this is a part of a larger installment by the About the People team that is also part of the Spirit of Mandela Coalition. And so now we will get into showing that clip, which is actually going to be premiering in New York City next Saturday in Harlem.
Societies wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. Citizen testaments bent on offering me a nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanence turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is the dangerous twin. Black August to the mountaintop balcony on my bedroom floor, you know they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you in your broken neck from their foolish euphoria. From the loyalty of their great superstition, is loyalty of their agrarian reform, I return to my mother completely disrespected. For peeling the heat off of purgatory, they kill poets like me. Walk me away from my poems, never to be heard from again. In this final industrial complex of bloodlines picked over, picked through a sport and spiritual depth that you definitely at least have made police become a pretty word. I'm reading a Lynch Mob shoestrings like they were tea leaves, teaching you how to write about cities. It's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against your chump change, your attempt to be mocked even with a gun in your car. Cubit of needlework spelled tuned for the proletariat, the relapse ministry. Towns of people curled up in a fetal position next to a diamond dime. Just another service day in the theatrics of tea house fashion. Here goes the poet, killing without killing. Never mind this painting of your language. Now be a meaningful next. The crows passing, good and dead by the afternoon. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt tooth man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative all over the United States. There are towers in Iraq. And I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood greenness mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit to talk about Mumia's case. It's a 40-plus year-long struggle for Mumia's freedom. Can you, this might be a lot, but can you give us some sort of summary or some high points or like major like significant transitions or breakthroughs in the case?
Yeah, and just so you know, I don't represent Mumia in the criminal case. Judy Ritter and Sam Spital represent him and are doing a great job. You know, to put it bluntly, you know, Mumia was framed. It was a street shooting where an officer ended up dead, Mumia ended up shot and in the emergency room and himself almost died. You know, there were 2 or 3 eyewitnesses to the shooting, which the state presented, and over the course of many years, the defense learned that their testimony was fabricated because they were promised benefits in exchange for testifying against Mumia. There was this guy, Chobert. He was on probation and he was promised help on his probation. And most recently, it was learned that after Mumia was convicted, he wrote a letter to the DA saying, quote unquote, "What about my money?" And, you know, the lawyers found this. So that was, you know, Chobert, and there were 2 other civilians on the street. One woman, Veronica Jones, didn't identify Mumia at trial, and after the trial, and this other woman, Cynthia White, did. But Veronica Jones testified at a post-conviction hearing that the police told her, look, and Veronica Jones didn't identify him, saw men running, and it was like, well, you know, if you change your story and say that and identify him, we can do this for you, and this for you, and this for you. And the police told her they made the same offer to Cynthia White. So this was all suppressed from the defense. And there's also an issue about the systematic exclusion of black people from the jury, which was a big issue in his case. And we could go on for hours about the intricacies in his case. Essentially, he brought several petitions for a new trial in Philadelphia. The first one before Judge Sabo, who sentenced him to death and was never going to give him a fair hearing, and they were denied. About 4 or 5 years ago now, I think it would be, there was a Supreme Court case that he tried to take advantage of, this Williams case, about whether a judge could be a DA and still hear the appeals. But he went to court on that claim, and during the course of those proceedings, the DA disclosed that they had just found 26 bankers' boxes of material on his case. And Judy and Sam, his 2 lawyers, went through all of those boxes, and they were the ones that found the letter from the witness about where's my money and some other stuff. They also found notes by the trial prosecutor making a record of the race of jurors to support the Batson, what's called the Batson claim. There was a petition. By this time it was turned over to Judge Clemens, and she denied the motion for a new trial without even a hearing. Not even putting Chobert on the stand to say, what did you mean by give me the money? If you were the judge, wouldn't you want to at least hear from him? Even if he lies about it. I mean, but she refused to do that. She denied him a new trial, and currently that decision is on appeal.
Yeah.
And so they're prosecuting that appeal. One of the difficulties in the Mumia case is that people, if you're not closely involved like I am, you can kind of get exhausted by all of these facts. And you know, when you're talking to friends just in the movement and you're not a lawyer and you try to explain why this man needs a trial, it's like an encyclopedia.
Yeah, it's complex.
It's complex.
Very complex.
But the bottom line is, they framed this man.
Yeah, we can go to the left.
Picture? Yeah, I'm looking for it. Yeah, I see his brothers. Huh?
Oh, that's it. Yep.
Please, bro.
We just out here from New York. We're about the People podcast as well as Spirit of Mandela. And we're really trying to just change the narrative, right, with our political prisoners, our prisoners of wars, and people of color, right, and poor people at the bottom, really, that it's not a lot of hate out here and it's not a lot of nonsense. It's really media that portrays this and media that constantly puts this in our brain, and now we start believing the shit, and it's not really true. So that's why we got to get out here.
Until you look into it yourself.
Yeah, get out here to the community and actually see the people that really knew Mumia. Blessings and free to live. We out here in the city of brotherly love to celebrate Mumia Abu Jamal's birthday, 68th birthday.
Mumia! Free him all! Free Mumia! Free him all!
No peace!
No peace!
Till Mumia Abu Jamal's release, no justice! No peace! Till Mumia Abu Jamal's release, no justice! No peace! Till Mumia Abu Jamal's release, no justice! No peace! Till Mumia Abu Jamal's release, no justice! No peace! Till Mumia Abu Jamal's release, no justice!
Assistance. And because Mumia spoke out for those people, he became a target of COINTELPRO, a federal counterinsurgency program that was geared to destroy black, brown, Caucasian resistance in this country. And they targeted the organizations for destruction, they targeted the leaders for destruction and for assassination. And so many people succumbed to this COINTELPRO program. And Mumia Abu Jamal was targeted as a youth in the Black Panther Party right here in Philadelphia because they seen the power of his voice. This is way before he became the voice of the voiceless as we know him to be today.
Prisons are now universal, and here in the United States, it's an industry. It's a whole profitable industry. Israel itself is a highly militarized prison state where half of the population, the entire indigenous population, lives under military occupation. And so with these prisons everywhere, you might be tempted to think that it's a normal thing because every country has it, but it's not.
They want to keep this system going to promote them. But they are not us. They are not us. We don't benefit from this system, which is why some bridges need to be burned. And for all of us out here, I'd love for us to be the ones to pour the gasoline, light the fire to burn that bridge down, and allow the fire that blazed from it to be the light for the other people coming behind us.
That's right.
Mumia Abu Jamal has thrown many matches, burning bridges of injustice through his journalism, explaining and speaking about injustice and exposing injustice.
He was a nice guy.
He was down to he was down to earth person.
know, he told you just like
he was
you
our
are.
class president at starter class, our junior high. When we graduated from there at 68, and he gave us direction He was very vocal.
How was that? Him as class president.
Oh, he was good. He was.
So what you're saying is that Philly really has love for Mumia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's
It's
just
a myth.
It's yes they do. Yes they do. It's the system that putting it out there. Yes.
And so they run with that on the mainstream, and it continues to be cop killer.
Yeah.
And you would
To switch that. We here to switch that. That's why we have these. We here to change the narrative and let people know that the people in Philly love Mumia. Yeah, we definitely want to go inside Mumia's old apartment, check it around, and look around inside there.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
We spoke to him.
Yeah, we spoke to them.
Oh, okay.
And we really just trying to get a feeling of the community that Mumia actually grew up around. Because the stigma is that he's a cop killer, people don't really like him, he's hated. And us, especially us in New York, we want to change that narrative that's false, right? People love Mumia, the community loves Mumia. And we really,
it's just, like I say, it's the white people downtown.
Yeah, of course.
It's the system that they set up, the system that they don't like that we're not going to go by, and that's what it is. And why they got the upper hands, what can you do? The country's changing. We're going to be dead going before it's browning like they're trying to prolong it. The country's changing.
Triplets, a surviving triplet, and I had a set of twins, boy-girl twins. That's why I say energy. This is why I said something is going on. So, like, whoever was here, we are connected some type of way, like the energy.
Wow.
Yeah.
The purpose of love, not fear, is to encourage people to spread love and challenge fear. If we're talking about love, and there's a love statue, a love monument across the street, and it's called Love Park. You know, we're in Philadelphia. This is the birthplace of liberty and all of this kind of stuff. Well, if we're practicing love, then Mumia Abu Jamal is not in prison. Right? So we need to spread that love that we say we're about, and we need to challenge the fear that causes people to put Mumia Abu Jamal in prison. There's only fear that does that, because they want to uphold their racism, because they want to protect each other with this police blue line and all of this kind of stuff. But that's fear. They fear that black people is going to take over and cause a problem, blah, blah, blah. They actually are projecting onto us what they've done to us, and they fear, you know, that at some point we may do to them what they did to us. And we ain't talking about revenge. We're just talking about equality.
Isn't that crazy?
And we do start talking about revenge. You know,
that's a whole nother conversation.
So we just, you know, so we spreading love and challenging fear.
40 years, y'all. 40 years. If you've never heard of him, his name is Mumia Abu Jamal. He was put in prison by the racist system.
Yes, sir.
Frank Rizzo, who was a racist mayor in the city of Philadelphia, framed and put Mumia in prison for a crime that everybody know he did not commit. And we out here today to say that we trying to free Mumia. He's been in prison for 40 years, unjustly. For the last couple years, the whole country has been in this, you know, so-called positive change and progressive state since the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others. They pretend that they want to make a change for the better for the people in this country, for black lives. But actually, there's a lot of black lives that are still in prison because of this injustice in this country. And we out here today to say that one of those people is right here in the city of Philadelphia. And his name is Mumia Abu Jamal.
Yes, sir.
Just because he wore dreadlocks, just because he supported the MOVE organization, just because he told the truth, just because he spoke when they told him to shut up, Mumia Abu Jamal has been a target. But we are here, and we are here to fight for the freedom of Mumia Abu Jamal. Just like we fight for the freedom of anybody else that speak out about the injustices in the country. And you gotta understand that today, July 3rd, tomorrow is Independence Day, the same way that George Washington and all of those freedom fighters for hundreds of years ago supposedly fought for the country for freedom against the British. That's the same way we out here fighting in the country against the injustice of the country of the United States of America. And we ain't here to cause no disturbance other than the fact that we out here to say free Mumia Abu Jamal.
Yes, sir.
We want you to enjoy yourself, but if you can't enjoy it, if you cannot align with us in freedom, then it ain't gonna be no peace. There ain't gonna be no peace, because if there ain't no justice, there's no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
resisting Cop City is really state terror. It has to be called out. Call them by their names.
What can you do to help bring Mumia home? You can host a screening of one of the great films on Mumia. Like Long Distance Revolutionary or Justice on Trial. These serve as great resources for PE and can work well, whether in person, remote, or hybrid. Film links can be found on our link tree. And if you have any questions about screenings or run into any issues, feel free to hit us up at aboutthepeople1312@gmail.com. You can also add your voice to the Love Not Fear video challenge.
Wanted to make this post to let folks know how important the freedom of Mumia Abu Jamal is.
Mumia is a beautiful person, a beautiful gift to us here on Turtle Island.
Whose courage and strength is larger than the largest giant and wider than the ocean. You, Mumia,
has been a rock in the struggle for people's liberation worldwide as he expresses his love for the people.
Mumia Abu Jamal, you answered the call. You spoke and wrote for us all, so we could breathe.
What Mumia Abu Jamal means to me is consciousness, is freedom.
Mumia, we love you. Thank you for always being a voice of truth, power, and justice.
And of course, you can show Mumia some love by sending a letter inside. Letters should be addressed to Smart Communications /PADOC, Mumia Abu-Jamal, AM 8335, SCI, Mahanoy, C/O, P.O. Box 33028, St. Petersburg, FL 33733. The letters are scanned and digitized, not delivered directly. More info on this can be found in the link tree. Please reach out with any questions or thoughts you may have on any of these action items at aboutthepeople1312@gmail.com. More info on all of this at linktree /aboutthepeople.
Yes. So powerful, so powerful. Thanks to the whole crew for making this powerful film. It was just amazing just to kind of see again, once again, who is Mumia and just the cause for why this case is so important for all of us. With that being said, we want to bring in a dear comrade of ours, somebody who is one of the co-founders for Existence is Resistance, dear friend, dear comrade, means so much to us, but also more importantly, her voice is so vital and critical at this time as she builds on not only Palestine, but Palestinian political prisoners, and also the work yet ahead for all of us during this critical time to destroy, the roots of Zionism and oppression by Palestinian family. So with that being said, family, let's bring in, give you love for Nancy Mansour from Existence is Resistance. Peace, 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 and love to you as always.
Peace. Thank you so much for having me. I also, have to represent Eyewitness Palestine. I am the executive director at Eyewitness Palestine, which in the same, same scope of work with Existence Resistance. For 20 years, Eyewitness has been taking folks to Palestine for that firsthand experience of what is happening on the ground there. You know, I always appreciate the space that has been given to us, you know, I want to say the last 15 to 17 years that we've been, you know, building bridges with our brothers and sisters here and all over the world. And I really appreciate you always, you know, giving us a chance to speak and represent our people at the same time. So, you know, Mumia has been in jail, like, you know, very close comrade of mine, Sekou Odinga, all of my life, pretty much from the year I was born. And it's outrageous that we are still having events calling for his freedom. You know, it's the same system. I wanted to speak a little bit about what was going on with political prisoners in Palestine, because there are so many parallels in what is happening. And I do want to just give, if you don't mind, a brief update on what is happening on the ground in Palestine currently. I know, you know, I'm pretty sure most of the people that are listening are aware of what's going on, but you know what we're witnessing right now is literally like the stories that my father told me that he witnessed as a child. And in my head it was, you know, it was all history and like books and documentaries, like, you know, in the memories of generation that we're losing now. But Israel's managed to supersede the numbers of the Nakba, the catastrophe in 1948, with their continued genocide on our Palestinian people. And what we're witnessing is exactly how Israel was created. And then we look at what Israel is doing now. There's many parallels to what they did in this country to the indigenous population. And, you know, we will never forget. But they don't let us forget. They don't let us forget because they keep doing it and doing it. And for some reason, if the children that it's happening to are not blonde with blue eyes, then it's okay. It's, you know, it's really, it's amazing. I don't know if amazing is the right word, to see people here in the US that claim freedom so much to make excuses for what is happening to Palestinians on the ground. Just an update, as of today, almost 18,000 Palestinians are dead in Gaza, 70% of whom are women and children. Over 8,000 are still under the rubble all over Gaza, in areas people cannot get to. Over 1 million Palestinians are now displaced in Gaza. Over 50,000 are injured. And over 250 Palestinians have been murdered in the West Bank since October 7th, including a 9-year-old boy in Jenin called Adam Al-Ghul with a sandwich in his hand. I want to take it back to political prisoners. On October 6th of this year, there was 4,452 Palestinian political prisoners in Israeli dungeons. Today, December, we're talking 64 days later, 65 days later, there are over 10,000 Palestinian political prisoners in Israeli dungeons, with a few thousand of them under administrative detention, which basically means they are arrested with no charges while they're under investigation, as Israel likes to say. And they can be held for 6 months at a time, and they can renew that 6 months for another 6 months. And there are people in Israeli jails, dungeons, that have been there for over a decade on this same charge. My friend's daughter, who I can't mention her name, who was arrested and released recently in one of the exchanges, I got to speak to her yesterday. They arrested her father a week before her, and then her. And when I asked her, you know, about, you know, what happened, she said to me in Arabic, "Farajuni al-maut wa raja'uni," which means they showed me death and then brought me back to life, and told her that since they have her father, if she speaks to anybody in the media, she'll visit him at his grave. So routinely, Palestinians are denied lawyers and family visits. Since October 7th, not one of the thousands of Palestinian prisoners have been allowed any visits from any legal representation from any family. And the only way that Palestinians know the fate or the state of their loved ones is when another prisoner is released from their neighborhood, and they can tell them when they get home how their family member is doing in prison. For example, today marks the 40 days since my brother Rasmi Arafat was murdered by Israel in Balata refugee camp. And his brother Ammar Arafat, who is in Israeli dungeons in Majiddo, to be precise, his family have no idea if he knows that his brother was murdered. Now, on the one hand, we figure that, the Zionist occupation more than likely told him, because, they like to do things like that to it's psychological warfare tactic. And so we assume that they told him. But one of the brothers that was released from their refugee camp, one of the brothers from their refugee camp that was released in the prisoner exchange a week and a half ago, told his family that a couple of days after October 7th, Ammar, the brother of the martyr Rasmi, was beaten so badly that you couldn't even see his eyes on his face, and they put him into solitary confinement. So nobody knows if he knows or not, or what state he's in. And none of the lawyers that we've spoke to have been able to get to him. Even the Palestinian prisoners that have been released recently, many of them young children that you see coming out, have been talking about the treatment in jail. They've been coming out with broken bones and saying that they weren't allowed any access to medical attention, so they weren't casted up until after they were released by the Palestinian Red Cross. They speak of unimaginable torture and abuse happening inside these Israeli jails, as we know happen inside of the dungeons of the United States. One child spoke of Tha'ir Abu As'ab from Kalkilia, who's a 38-year-old brother who was sentenced to 25 years in jail in 2005. He had, up to a couple of weeks ago, had served almost 20 years. And three different accounts from three different young men that were released from the prison that he was in spoke of how all he did was ask the settler guards if there was a ceasefire. He asked them if there was a ceasefire, and so they decided to beat him to death. One of the kids said they beat him so bad in his head that something fell out of his head, and they were so scared to move that they just froze. And Tha'ir was beaten until he stopped breathing. Tha'ir was a co-defendant of my good friend Mahmoud Hawati, who was sentenced to 9.5 years. Sorry, at 15 years old, for throwing stones at soldiers. He was sentenced because after they tortured him, they gave him papers to sign in Hebrew, which they do to children all the time that do not speak Hebrew and do not read Hebrew, admitting to whatever they're charging them with. My friend Mahmoud was released in 2014. In fact, we just did a really amazing webinar on Tuesday, Eyewitness Palestine, where we had former child prisoners, another brother that spent 20 years in jail, Palestinian human rights lawyers, Tala Nasser from Adamir, and Kifaya, who worked specifically with women prisoners, who gave accounts of what was happening on the ground. We were also joined by Arab Barghouti, the son of Palestinian political prisoner Marwan Barghouti, who's serving 5 consecutive life sentences. Now, just to give you an idea, Marwan Barghouti, much like many of our brothers here and sisters that are held in the dungeons of the US, is one of the most powerful, progressive leaders the Palestinians have ever had. I'll share that link, and hopefully Gabe and Sophia, you could share it with everybody and they could watch the Zoom on that. It was super powerful to hear the voices from the ground. Also, one of the lawyers that was speaking said that from the reports of the kids that have come out, there's been reports that there's 6 other Palestinians that have been murdered in jail by these settler guards. But Israel has yet to release them or release the names of them. And I mean, why would they? Because I don't know if you guys know, but they harvest organs of Palestinians. They have admitted to this in 2009, Dr. Yehuda Hiss. I'm not going to get into all of that, but a few weeks ago, just to be more recent, the Euromed Monitor claimed that it documented Israeli forces confiscating dead bodies of Palestinians from Al-Shifa hospital and in the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza. And when they returned their bodies, Palestinian medical professionals found that vital organs such as livers, kidneys, hearts, corneas were missing. And they're calling for an independent investigation. When I talk about political prisoners from Palestine, I think, you know, there's so many that I think about here. And I think that's what, you know, back in 2009, when I started learning about the BLA, and the Black Panthers and the history, the Black Liberation Movement, the history here of the Black struggle. It really resonated because every story that I heard, I could think of a Palestinian that was in the same situation. I want to uplift our brother who joined the ancestors, Ed Poindexter, who I believe passed away yesterday in prison after serving 52 years for a crime he did not commit. I want to uplift Rochelle McGee, who passed away October 18th after serving 67 years in captivity. He was born the same year as my dad. Whenever I used to read about him, I just remember looking at the year and just being, wow, like, you know, if they could sit together and compare stories of like what they've seen and what they've done. And, you know, I just think about what it would have felt like if my dad spent his entire, my entire life, the entire existence in jail, because he was fighting for our people's freedom. Our brother, Dr. Matula Shakur, who passed away July 7th after serving over 35 years. Albert Woodfox, who spent over 40 years in prison, passed away August 4th of 2002. All because these freedom fighters refused to stand idle whilst their people were being harassed, murdered, and enslaved by a system that was not built for them. On the contrary, this system that we live under was built and engineered in every way to keep Black and brown people down, to keep us fighting each other to make their job easier. My solidarity for Black liberation is not contingent on Black solidarity for Palestine, nor it should be for anybody. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And from the US to Israel, there is one common enemy, white supremacy. And they've stolen everything from our people, from our food, to our dress, to our languages, to our lingos, to our children, to our fathers, to our mothers, and to our time. Whatever they take from us, they cannot ever take our dignity, our steadfastness, and our will to resist. And Palestine is showing us it's freedom or death, and we're watching it in real time. I ask everybody to keep speaking up for our people collectively, never back down, never cower like the cowards in the mainstream that we're watching that don't have a backbone to say a single word about humans being murdered, not just in Palestine, all over the world. Palestinians have displayed their babies in pieces. I don't understand what more people want to see for them to be human. You really have to question what kind of world we live in to think it's okay to see parents pulling their babies from under the rubble, lifeless. It's okay to watch people collecting their loved ones' body parts from under the rubble. It's okay to see a 7-year-old boy carrying his brother's body parts in his backpack. Why is it okay anywhere? Why is it not okay in Ukraine, but it's okay if it's in DR Congo, or it's okay if it's in Yemen or Kashmir or Palestine or Sudan, because they're all Black and brown. And that's the sick-ass society we live in. In the words of Mumia Abu Jamal, for empire is ever an exercise of global violence, for domination is but utter violation. The very root of violence It violates the human soul which yearns for freedom. We have a saying in Arabic, Eid wahdi ma btzaif, as in one hand doesn't clap. So I say to you, I'm here for you. Whatever your need, whatever you need us for, call on us and we will be here until freedom. Free Mumia Abu Jamal, free all political prisoners from Palestine to DR Congo, to the Philippines, to Hawaii. Free them all. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. We appreciate your time, your words. As much as we know that must have been really hard for you, we thank you for being here with us. We know you have a busy day ahead, so we will be sharing out those links, and much love. Okay, so as we continue to stand in solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters, we do have a word from Mumia, an audio from Mumia on the struggle. So give us 1 minute to play that.
War against the fleas. Perhaps Israel's most respected statesman, former diplomat, Abba Eban, once said, "Nobody does Israel any service by proclaiming its right to exist." That was then. In 1981, the now is a new age, a new era, a time of Israel's swing to its far right wing. No, it is once again a time of war. But to say it's a war of Hamas versus Israel is somewhat disingenuous. For there has been a war between Palestine and Israel for, at the very least, 75 years, and at most, a century. And this is not a war around religion or between faiths or gods. It's a war for that which is no longer being produced, land. Kudos to the authors of the Except for Palestine text, The Limits of Progressive Politics, Mark Lamont Hill and Mitchell Klitnick. Their book, Using History Instead of Myths, shows how the Palestinians received the exceptions to the rules, while Zionists got every break. They showed the emergence of the rightist Likud party and the ideas proposed by Zeev Jabotinsky. They led right to this moment in Israeli history of war and iron walls. The book, Except for Palestine, shows how U.S. foreign policy was driven by domestic policy, and how both major parties played bipartisan footsies to make Israel a regional superpower in the Middle East. And while Hamas may have used a few low-tech hang gliders, have you ever seen one engage with an F-14? I don't think so. What most U.S. news agencies are loath to address is the realm of international law, especially when one considers the law of occupied territories and the right of the occupied to resist their occupation by any necessary means. The Palestinians are the indigenous people of the region. They are thus equivalent to the Navajo, Apache, and Seminoles of the West, subjected to the settler colonialism of the invaders. It is they who have a right to exist. Is that not so? The indigenous of the U.S. were sent to the worst lands available, so-called reservations. The Palestinians have been ghettoized, walled off by walls that violate international law, humiliated, and subjected to a century of dispossession and military repression. Their decades of negotiations have led to nothing but more of the same. They want what all people want: freedom. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Prison Radio.
Again, we thank Mumia for his words, and we thank everyone for continuing to tune in. If you're on here and you have easy access to the link, we ask that you continue to share out the link as we are now getting further into the program. And we now have Dr. Ricardo Alvarez. He's Mumia's medical consultant on the West Coast. Dr. Alvarez.
Oh, greetings. Sending much love to family. And there is a way in which we are family as a result of being relationship to Mumia's oppression over the course of these, for many of us, 25, 30 years. We are now talking about being in relationship to suffering over generations. In these next few minutes, we have much before us. And I just want to acknowledge the beautiful words and poetry of and the suffering of others, for which we are trying to find connection and meaning to come together in action. And in this regard, as I speak, I'm going to do the work of a deliverable, which is to write a letter to Amnesty International in my professional relationship as counsel to this beautiful spirit. And therefore, I read this to you as an opening in a first draft. I write as Mumia's outside medical consultant over the last 3 years, but in the last 30 years, having known his family and close supporters, including other physicians, philosophers, lawyers, historians, journalists, psychologists, artists, theologians, academicians, and a community of brave organizers, revolutionaries, and passionate women healers. My consultations draws from my training as a 30-year frontline primary care provider of mostly poor, monolingual, undocumented patients at a community health center in San Francisco. Now, I want to move on to skip a section to say, I draw on my training and ethical responsibilities to report with absolute certainty that Mumia is the victim of elder abuse, for which the state itself is the perpetrator of the abuse, and that Mumia is a political prisoner. His status as a victim of elder abuse is one shared by tens of thousands of other prisoners of all races and color, but which is predominantly experienced by Black, Brown, Indigenous, and poor prisoners who have disproportionately suffered a half-century of accelerated racist mass incarceration with longer sentences than any modern society in history, and for which there is objective evidence of torture, just as it relates to the systematic use of extremely extended periods of solitary confinement stretching for decades. His status as a political prisoner is shared by a smaller but significant number of individuals that are predominantly Black, Brown, Latinx, and Indigenous, that are among the most surveilled human beings on earth, and who have been imprisoned and tortured by various means, including solitary confinement and physical torture, at the hands of the United States government because of their outspoken beliefs of these prisoners and their understanding of the ancestral roots of oppression and the rights of self-defense and protection of community. I do not write to declare that he only needs improved medical care in a prison setting, although I will be sharing direct evidence of court-documented medical harm to the organs that sustain his physical body. Instead, I write to you to make clear to Amnesty International that it is not possible to provide ethical, trauma-informed medical care in a prison setting when the trauma is caused by the state. Hence, the collective consciousness coming from the voices of the incarcerated and the released elders guides our messages as witness to a movement that speaks with one voice, freedom is the only treatment. In my capacity as medical consultant to one of the most brilliant griot journalists in history, it is also my ethical responsibility to bear witness in a way that meaningfully supports his freedom. I also believe it is the responsibility of Amnesty International to honor the relationship that was started almost a quarter of a century ago with the initial publication of your report on Mumia, to now examine and report on the transparent hostility of the state and support our collective call for freedom. I am blessed to have colleagues who have devoted their lives to documenting what Mumia calls the administrative violence of judicial and legal proceedings that document a legal lynching. That is a story of facts that is necessary for you all to fulfill your mission. We as professionals in this country can have no confidence in the judicial and police forces of our nation. The highest echelons of medicine speak to protecting our communities from police violence. That is what is being published by the American Public Health Association, which is identifying abolition as a form of public health. But as the elder women political prisoners who have been freed teach us, 25 years of facts do not tell a story. Mumia is a story of love for his people and the beautiful and painful journey of suffering, speaking his truth in literally the physical manifestation of our nation's soul wound of genocide and slavery. Now I'm going to close there and share that that's my first draft, but I also want to share with you something else. We are being given a gift of connectivity through Mumia. He's allowing us to understand the organicity of us coming together and our voices coalescing. He's made clear that we are to be guided by the released elders, Pam is my guide and teacher in understanding how it is to be in right relationship with our colleagues and speak from our hearts one to another to feel the force of his love. He teaches us how he can feel the prayers coming through the concrete, the denial of humanity, the ability for him, how he soaks in just the smell of grass, and from that he draws strength. He teaches us lessons. It is for us to hear and understand, to heal in the family, for us to hear and understand, to connect with the ancestors, for us to heal and understand how we can stay calm in the presence of us in the triggering force against this vicious illness of white supremacy that seeks to deny his humanity. And he synthesizes for us and gives us this gift of love, not fear. He invites us to sing and praise and dance and collectively come together in our struggle. So as a medical provider, let me tell you that I am blessed not only to have these beautiful poets and everyone else who's involved in this powerful story, but we are vigilant to his health. He is tired. It is time now that we come together, engage our institutions in a collective and strategic way. And in that capacity, I work with Jalil Muntakim. We acknowledge how beautifully our sister Nancy spoke of all of our political prisoners. He tells us to link with elder abuse, all the prisoners. He tells us to bring food and nutrition to all the prisoners. He tells us to link with the other PPs. He tells us to free them all. So from this place, I say, his body is tired, his spirit is strong, and now it's for us to receive his gift and come together with love, not fear.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alvarez, as always, for providing us just with that powerful and healing call to action as we discuss what needs to happen going forward. Thank you so much. And again, please make sure to comment in the chat. This has been a powerful, powerful hours so far. And again, we're trying to cover not only the update on Mumia Abu Jamal, but also in solidarity with Palestine, in solidarity with the Congo, all oppressed people around the world, free Sudan, free Puerto Rico, free Hawaii, free them all, free them all, free them all. As we continue our conversation around Mumia Abu Jamal with updates around his legal, and then we will get to our variety of powerful speakers who speak to so many other campaigns across the country. I want to bring in also a very dear family, dear comrade, dear sister, dear educator, and somebody who is a critical component of the legal defense team for Mumia Abu Jamal, professor, scholar, author on the Young Lords. So much to say. Dr. Johanna Fernandez, thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you, Gabe, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Sophia, for co-hosting this really beautiful event. And those words about Palestine earlier just were searing. I feel that this is a moment when we are grieving collectively. This is a moment when we can't breathe. It's a moment more difficult than the post 9/11 period, when the United States invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. I just want to say that we all stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and that settler colonial domination has a number of pillars, whether it's in the United States, in Australia, or in Palestine. Land displacement, mass land displacement, the dehumanization of the displaced, incarceration, mass incarceration of the people who are racialized and dehumanized and at the bottom of society and who are displaced. 1 in 5 Palestinians have been imprisoned, and that number is growing exponentially. Those are the pillars of, and political imprisonment, of course, political imprisonment and the mass incarceration of the displaced, the racialized, and the dehumanized are all part of those pillars. Ethnic cleansing and genocide. I mean, Israel has studied the project of settler colonial domination in the United States. Another key element of this project is that the colonizers, the settlers, lose their own humanity and are not able to see the barbarism of their actions. And that's what we're seeing in Israel today. I want to just turn to Mumia's legal situation, and I thought that I should give an overview of what we've been through and what has been on the table over the last 5 years, because, you know, we need to reignite this movement to bring Mumia home. So 5 years ago, you probably recall, in December 2018, new evidence emerged in Mumia's case that opened up 3 possibilities: freedom, a new trial, or at least the possibility of an evidentiary hearing about the new evidence that emerged. And the new evidence, as you might recall, was disclosed by Judge Leon Tucker of the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. At that time, Judge Tucker was hearing the issue of judicial bias in Mumia's case, during which Mumia's attorneys prevailed. Judge Tucker ruled that a judge who had heard all of Mumia's appeals in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and denied them had a conflict of interest and should have recused himself. And this judge, Ronald Castile, had heard all of Mumia's PCRA petitions over the course of like 25 years. He had been previously involved in Mumia's case because he was the prosecutor of the DA's office in Philadelphia when Mumia's case was on appeal. And we know, and we were told by Judge Tucker, and we heard in the court, that Ronald Castile had previously been the darling of the Fraternal Order of Police, the institution that has framed Mumia, right, and wanted to execute him. The Fraternal Order of Police funded Castile's campaign to become a judge in Pennsylvania, because in Pennsylvania, you actually have to run for office in order to become a judge. And the Fraternal Order of Police had named Castile Man of the Year. For all of these reasons, he was prejudiced and he should have recused himself. So Judge Leon Tucker said in his decision that Mumia had the right to reopen all the previous PCRA hearings, petitions he filed, on which Ronald Castile ruled and denied Mumia relief. What happened next is instructive for what's happening now. This was the first time that a judge in the lower courts had ever, in the history of Mumia's case, followed the law and granted Mumia's relief. Enter the DA's office under Larry Krasner. DA Larry Krasner's office appealed Judge Tucker's decision to the Superior Court, and the Superior Court overturned Judge Tucker's incredible decision. It was during these hearings with Judge Leon Tucker that the new evidence I referenced earlier emerged. And that happened again in December 2018, when Judge Tucker made public the discovery of 6 boxes in a remote location of the DA's office in Philadelphia. What happened next was 2 years of frivolous legal delays, including a King's Bench petition filed by the widow of the fallen officer that Mumia is wrongly accused of killing. So after 2 years of frivolous legal delays, Mumia was finally back in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas in 2021 on the question of the evidence in these 6 boxes. And we all expected at that time that Judge Tucker was going to continue on Mumia's case, but you don't get rewarded for following the law and granting Mumia relief. Judge Tucker was banished to legal Siberia to preside over issues of commerce rather than issues surrounding people. He was reassigned to Philadelphia's Commerce Court. And a new judge in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas was assigned to the case, Judge Lucretia Clemens. And Judge Clemens heard Mumia's petition for an evidentiary hearing based on the emergence of 2 key pieces of evidence. First is a Brady violation. This was evidence that emerged in those 6 boxes, that there was a Brady violation. And Brady is a Supreme Court decision that pertains to prosecutorial misconduct. For over 30 years, we learned from examining these boxes, the prosecution hid a letter from Mumia's attorneys. That letter was written by the prosecution's key eyewitness, Robert Chobert, and it was written shortly after the end of Mumia's conviction trial. In the letter, Chobert inquires about money owed to him by the original prosecutor in the case, Joe McGill. This is like in 1982 that Chobert writes this letter immediately after the end of the conviction, Mumia's conviction. This letter suggests that Chobert's testimony was bribed and that he had a material interest in appeasing the prosecutor who had promised him something in return for his testimony. We know that this letter signals a Brady violation, a problem of prosecutorial misconduct, because Robert Chobert, the key witness in the case, didn't incur expenses during Mumia's trial. How do we know that? because he testified in a 1995 hearing in this case that he was a kept witness. He was kept at a hotel, he was fed daily, and he was driven to work by the police every night and picked up after work during the course of Mumia's trial. So they took care of him. So what more was he being compensated for at the end of the trial? What money was he owed that he had been promised during the course of the trial, if essentially he was fed, he was taken to work, he was kept in a hotel? Well, Mumia's attorneys filed, we don't know, because that can only be, these answers can only be asked and answered in an evidentiary hearing. Mumia's attorneys filed another claim based on the new evidence that emerged in 2018, that was found in 2018, and that's a Batson claim, which establishes that discrimination in jury selection is unconstitutional. And when there's a Batson claim underfoot, if you are granted a Batson claim, which is a Supreme Court decision against discrimination in jury selection, you either get immediately a new trial or you get set free because it's believed that you were wrongfully convicted. So in these boxes, Mumia's attorneys found notes taken by the original prosecutor, again, Joe McGill, in which the prosecutor tracks the race of potential jurors by writing a B next to them or a W next to these potential jurors, signaling Black or white. We know from the evidence that Joe McGill excluded Black jurors who were employed, and he allowed into the final jury white jurors who were unemployed. Essentially, what McGill was trying to do was that he was trying to craft a jury on the basis of race and racial assumptions, which is unconstitutional, and in any other case would lead to a new trial, as I said previously, or vacating a conviction and setting the wrongfully convicted imprisoned person free. I'm going to end in a minute. In late March of this year, Judge Lucretia Clemens ruled against Mumia. She denied the Brady violation of prosecutorial misconduct and the suppression of potentially exculpatory evidence by the prosecutor. She said that even if Robert Chobert was bribed, the fact that he was bribed would not have made a difference in the outcome of the case. The only problem with this logic, however, is that by the original prosecution's estimation, even Joe McGill, the original prosecutor, said that Chobert was the prosecution's key witness. He was one of two people who said that they saw what happened on the night of December 8th, 1981. The only other person who said they saw what happened on December 9th, 1981 was Cynthia White, a sex worker whose testimony, according to the original prosecutor, changed over time and could not be trusted. Judge Clemens, the judge who's hearing this new evidence, also denied the Batson claim. And she denied both of these claims without a hearing on the basis that the Batson claim was not filed in a timely fashion. The only little problem here with Judge Clemens' legal logic is that she's overlooking the fact of the new evidence, which was hidden from Mumia's attorneys for over 35 years. His attorneys had claimed a Batson violation in Mumia's case and tried to support their claim over the course of the last 35 years, but were denied the evidence by the prosecution. It wasn't until the new evidence surfaced that they could clearly say, oh, by the way, here's Batson, and we can prevail. In September, so the logic used by the judge legally doesn't hold water. In September, Mumia's attorneys filed an appeal of Judge Clement's decision, explaining that the judge's ruling misapprehended the law, misinterpreted the law, and that Mumia, at the very least, has the constitutional right to an evidentiary hearing. The DA's office, however, here's where the charade comes in, is going to challenge our arguments in a motion that they're going to file right now on December 22nd, 2023 of this year, in like 2 weeks. The problem here is that the DA is engaged in a charade. Once again, the charade that this is anything but a charade of a case. When Larry Krasner, and by the way, all of this is being appealed to the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, which is the court right before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. When Larry Krasner was running for office in 2017, he acknowledged that Philadelphia is the draconian law and order capital of the country, the district with the highest rate of incarceration of Black and Brown people in this nation. And Krasner promised to change this. And he put emphasis on the city's conviction integrity unit, which has exonerated at least 29 people from the time he was elected to now. People who were falsely imprisoned through prosecutorial misconduct, people who were falsely imprisoned because of lying and tampering with evidence on the part of the police to obtain convictions, people who were falsely imprisoned because of the concealment of evidence of innocence on the part of the prosecutors, and people who were convicted falsely as a result of eyewitness misidentification. Mumia's case is truly a microcosm of all of these violations and a microcosm of the period of the 1970s and 1980s when these violations were most rampant in Philadelphia, the high point of rogue white supremacy within the DA's office and the police department in Philadelphia, the era of Frank Rizzo's reign and the era of the McMahon tapes, a reference to ADA Jack McMahon, who trained prosecutors on how to exclude Black people from the jury. Joe McGill was one of those people trained by Jack McMahon on how to exclude Black people from the jury, which is a clear Batson violation. Reckoning with the long history of racism in Philadelphia means granting Mumia the Brady claim, releasing him from prison for the concealment of exculpatory evidence by prosecutors, but also for having held him on death row unconstitutionally for 28.5 years. There's a lot more that can be said. This is really a moment to continue to educate Philadelphians, people in the country and around the world, about the atrocities in this case. This is a moment to link Mumia's case to the cases of other political prisoners, to the horrific crisis of hyperincarceration, and to the aspirations for freedom of the people of Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fernandez. You continue to provide us such critical insight and input on where we need to go with this case, how we can move forward as we keep these dates in December on our radar to organize, mobilize, strategize towards Mumia's freedom to ultimately bring him home. I'm going to bring in Sophia so that we can discuss this final stage and phase of this conversation as we close out with these powerful political prisoner campaigns.
Yes, thank you, Gabe, for that. Thank you again, Johanna, for those words, for breaking things down, and for really encouraging more people to get involved in the struggle to bring Mumia home. It's full time. I will now bring up Kisise Siddiqui. Kisise is the daughter of Kamal Siddiqui, and she has been on it for so long to have her father freed, and she will share some information with us right now. Kisise?
Peace, everyone. This is such a powerful, powerful program. We are definitely speaking on the truth. And I just want to say it's something that thinking about Mumia, if you see in this image is my daughter and my father. I remember when my daughter was like 4 years old and bringing her to the first Mumia rally in Philly. And we got on the bus in Philly. We got on the bus from New York to Philly, and she was so excited, and she had her fists up, and she was saying, "Free Mumia, free Mumia." So, this is in our blood, and we need to free all of our political prisoners, and we need to change the narrative. I want to talk about my father, Kamal Siddiqui. This has been a heavy year. This has definitely been a heavy year. My father, I've been able to see my father twice this year. And I'm so grateful for that because of the Free Kamal campaign. When I saw him the last time I saw my father was in October, and he gave me updates on his health. He's had these wounds. He was able to see a vascular specialist at the time. And they were planning to do a procedure, but because his wounds are healing, that is a good thing. His wounds are healing. The issue is always that his wounds start to heal, and then he goes through the same neglect again, where because of the lack of faculty, the lack of people, the lack of care in that prison, Augusta State Medical Prison, his wounds start to deteriorate. So our campaign, we are constantly in contact with him. My father's lawyer has also been able to see my father a few months ago, also in October. I mean, we're always just in communication with him so that he doesn't experience that neglect. I want to just emphasize too, just on our elders. When I was in just the elder abuse in these prisons. When I was in Atlanta, we had a strategic planning meeting around my father, and also a panel just with other with Brother Jalil and Jaheed to talk about what is happening with Mumia, with our elders. The numbers are increasing. How many elders have we lost this year? And we want to stop talking about injustice. We want to talk about our freedom fighters, bringing them home, but not just bringing them home when they're about to die. We need our elders home. We also need to talk about the families. I was listening to Nancy. I was talk about Palestine, and I felt I had chills. One of the things too with families and the messengers to speak about these issues, it is horrific. These are the genocide and the elder abuse. It destroys the soul. And so we do need to uplift, to talk about love, not fear, because this is inhumane, what we're experiencing. And so, I want to say that as the daughter, as my father's daughter, that I struggle too, to try to uplift the campaign, to be there, to be his voice. But just to talk about just how families, we really, as the voice, as the children, we really need that support. And I'm so grateful for having our campaign, because there are times when you just need to talk to somebody. I'm on this panel, but I have to be his voice. I have to represent the campaign, and also just feel and try to understand, this process, this inhumanity. I want to say that I do look forward to part of the campaign too. We look forward to, which is campaign, I should say, is please go on freekamal.com. We have campaign meetings every Monday. And we're there to educate people, to uplift who Kamal Siddiqui is. In February 19th, we're going to have a big just letter writing, just not just writing him letters, but we want him home, and the goal is to get him home in 2025. And so we need letters of support from family, from friends who know him, to talk about who Kamal Siddiqui is. And on February 19th, we're going to uplift that. That is during his birthday. And that is also opportunity that I will be able to go see my father with my daughter, my daughter, Yuri. And just so you know, that again, families that don't get to see their loved ones, children that don't get to see their loved ones. My daughter and my son have not seen their grandfather in years. And I even have to prepare them to see him. It's like, what is it like for the children to go into these prison systems? So there's a lot of work to be done. Again, thank you for having me here to talk about my father. Go on freekamal.com, to just and spread the word. We've been doing a lot of outreach around who he is. Again, we need to educate people on who our political prisoners are. They are our freedom fighters, and we do need to change the narrative. So yeah, I know there's probably so much, but like, we also have an interfaith community building happening today and tomorrow. My father's he's Islamic, he's practicing Muslim. A lot of his resilience is because of his faith. When I look at also just comparing again the elders to the children and the families in Palestine, and just seeing that resilience through everything that they are experiencing in the genocide. But still, there's just like this spark, there's something in the eyes, and that is our spirit, and that is our resilience. And that's the same resilience that my father has. And that resilience gives me strength to continue and to know that he is coming home. And I believe that, and I know that. So thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Kasise. That was really amazing. It's always welcoming to hear you speak of your father. It's always so warm and gentle, and we appreciate your time and effort. And yes, Kamal Siddiqui will be freed. Just a reminder to folks that the Church of the Overcomer in Philadelphia is having an interfaith weekend called Liberate Our Elders, and that's happening this entire weekend in person and also online. So check out that Facebook page for their events, and I think a few may be tuning in now as we speak. So we thank Pastor Keith Collins and the Kamal Siddiqui Committee for making that happen. So now we will get to the Reverend Joy Powell campaign, and our dear Ann Lamb, who has been in this struggle for a long time and continues to do great work with the Jericho movement and others. And so, Ann Lamb, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it. It's been a really powerful program. Of course, we completely stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We always have and we always will, and so do all our political prisoners. I just wanted to say briefly, in case people don't know about Reverend Joy Powell, she was very active against police brutality in Rochester. She was organizing in the community, especially among the youth. And for that, she was targeted. And she was targeted and framed up by the police department and sentenced to a very long time in prison. Her current release date would be 2045, first parole hearing. She's currently fighting that wrongful conviction. You can go to freejoypowell.org. That's her website. She also has a Facebook page, Free Joy Powell. Check it out. I was just talking to her yesterday. She did give a little statement. Let me find it so I can read it to you. All right, so this is from Reverend Joy Powell. And she says, "Peace and blessing, comrades. I give homage to my big brother warrior king, Mumia Abu Jamal, who, like myself, is being held captive by our modern-day slaveholders. I say that because we do not bow down to the slave masters. We hold it down for a people who have been subjected to a war that they and we did not ask for. As said by Salah Damali, never see your battles as obstacles. See them as challenges, each one to be deliberately engaged, mastered, and learned from for the preparation for the next and even more difficult, strengthening adversity. Because to whom much is given, much is required. The primary goal is to keep us silent, but keep fighting the good fight, because God is not going to put more on us than we can bear. Of course, we have been dealt a hand that simply isn't fair. And we know all too well of the ill effects of being a survivor who has been punished for stepping up to the plate in a society that meant to complicate and confuse our total existence as the chosen ones that God wanted to be the voices for the voiceless. They have desecrated and perpetrated the fraud while representing two very different laws. If we are supposed to be equal as human beings in the United States, then why can't some DAs, judges, and supremacists see the evil of locking up the actually and factually innocent? How can we cope from the trauma that we have been subjected to based upon the color of our skin? Can racist police and those who suffer from post-traumatic slave disorder please get your knees off our necks? We can't breathe. You've stolen our lives. Free is when nobody can tell you what you can be. Free is when the TV isn't controlling what you can see. Locked in my cell, I am shackled from ankle to feet. A judge banging a gavel turns us into slaves from the kings and queens in the land of the free, so-called, where blacks are enslaved. 3/5 of a man is the phrase. We were stripped of our minds, bodies, and human rights, stripped of our bloodlines, whipped and confused. The American pride is to be a modern-day king justifying genocide. Is Joe Biden sensationalizing and romanticizing rapes, homicides, and fratricide, the theft that made America the land of the free? A kid crossed state lines illegally, came to a peaceful fight for civil rights, shot and killed freedom fighters, and got a slap on the wrist. Now here goes Trump pumping a fist. The hired protector and killer are wearing the same uniform. How scary is the media perception and the blatant lies in the headlines, sending billions of dollars overseas to endorse and support a war, killing thousands of innocent people. They justified dropping bombs on U.S. neighborhoods to wipe out the innocent Africa comrades, then gave the one that survived prison time. What is free when the Florida governor wants to wipe out Black history because of the guilt and shame and the trauma and pain that was caused by the atrocities? Yet because we are God-fearing people, we hold no malice, nor do we desire revenge. All we ask for is equality and justice. May all the comrades who have passed on rest in power. Shields up, revolutionary love, Reverend Joy Powell. So, Joy is also, in her early 60s. She has diabetes. She's also has lost most of her hearing. When we communicate, we do it through this TTY system. It's very frustrating, but it works. And she has always been, standing up for the other women prisoners in the two different prisons that she's been in, because there aren't that many prisons for women in New York State. She was first in Albion, and now is at Bedford Hills. And she's constantly being harassed by the COs. It happens all the time, and they don't take into account the fact that sometimes she can't hear them. Like if she's not looking at you, she's not going to hear what you say. So, if you're trying to tell her do this or do that, and she doesn't hear you, then you write her up. You give her an infraction. So, we're constantly fighting these battles. And she just recently did this great thing for Thanksgiving, which I don't celebrate, but people in prison do. There's a lot of women who don't get visits, don't get food packages, So she put together a whole big Thanksgiving meal for 15 women who usually never have visits and never have, a nice meal to eat. They can't cook there. So I said, this is just, a really wonderful human being. Shouldn't be in prison at all in the first place. We are fighting to overturn that wrongful conviction. She has several legal meetings coming up. So hopefully, that will happen. But get involved. Check out her website. It lists the whole history of the case, rejoypowell.org. You can always reach me, New York City Jericho, gmail.com. We've been doing a lot of work around Joy, and we hope that we can get that conviction overturned. And if not, the alternative would be to, try clemency petition, but that doesn't fly very well anywhere. And Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nancy, for that beautiful and moving and painful speech about what is happening in Palestine. We have been following it closely as well. In fact, there's a whole bunch of demonstrations going on today in New York. The whole Bronx Anti-War Commission was meeting together at Yankee Stadium and going out to join the big march in Brooklyn. So, free all political prisoners and free Palestine.
Yes, yes. Free them all, free them all. Thank you so much, Anne, for your message. And we will definitely get the link in the chat. And we continue with the program here. Next, we have Paulette. Is that correct? Yes, next we have Paulette. And Paulette is a longtime freedom fighter, also part of the Spirit of Mandela coalition. And she will be doing us an honor of speaking about two political prisoners, that of Leonard Peltier and Veranza Bowers. Paulette.
Thank you so much. And it's really an honor to be there, to be here, wishing we were there. But I have known both Veranza Bowers and Leonard Peltier when they were free people. When Veranza and I lived on the West Coast, and he was a Panther up in Richmond, we had met at a couple of demonstrations and talked and developed a political relationship. I was in an organization called Prairie Fire, the above arm of the Weather Underground. I met Leonard in 1972. So you can imagine how many years ago that is. And he and I were only 10 years old at that time. But he was on his way to the Trail of Broken Treaties, to the takeover of the BIA office in Washington, D.C. And so both of these comrades and I and our children have grown up together. And it's amazing to me that it's been over 50 years. It's amazing to me when I visit Leonard to hear him laugh and joke around and realize at the same time that because of the conditions in the prison, the elder abuse and lack of medical care, that his arthritis has gotten so bad that he cannot paint. That was his one joy in life, was to paint. And he, Sundiata, Tom Manning, were all at one time together and all painted in Leavenworth. And if you look at Tom's work, who is now an ancestor, and Leonard's and Sundiata, their paintings reflect their relationship in their minds to their people. Leonard's are often of traditional dress, of powwows, of children on reservations. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. And he said these are memories that he pulls out, you know, when it's hard and he's locked down, because the federal system, their lockdown has continued since COVID, and they continue to use that as an escape for not having enough federal correctional officers, for cutting the budget. And what that does then is forces these prisons, and they do it very happily, put the sign on the door that said all visits are canceled for the future. Check the website. And so months at a time, Leonard is locked down and not allowed out. They have a day room where they are allowed to go, people in the unit together and sit around and talk. And Leonard is a storyteller. And so for young people coming into prison, He's like the grandfather they probably never had. And especially with young Native people, to take them out to the sweat lodge, introduce them to the sweat lodge, to their prayers. In fact, that's where Veranza and Leonard met. We're in the sweat lodge in Lompoc, California. And they have been sweat lodge brothers for years. And in both of their prayers are for each other. You never pray for yourself in the sweat lodge. It's always for others, to ask grandfather to help them, to heal them. And when Veranza was diagnosed with cancer, Leonard made an effort because of his age and the fact that it's very difficult for him to get down on his knees to go into the sweat lodge. He did it anyways, and he was able to go in there and to talk to grandfather about his friend, Veranza Bowers. And when Leonard had his operation, Veranza did the same. And these young Native people and the free Africans and the new Africans who have been taken into the sweat lodge come out with this feeling that grandfather is taking care of them, that they have this to do, but they have to grow at the same time. They have to realize that coming home means that these ways have to change, and that they have to learn to respect for their elders, people who, when they were young and teenagers, that they thought they knew what was right. But when they come home, they are now the elders, and it's their responsibility to pass on what they have learned. Leonard will have completed a 15-year hit in 2024, and will be going before the parole board. We have a legal team that will be going down to help him get adjusted to having to go before the parole board, which is demeaning in and of itself. And so the support of these lawyers to help him, to get him trained so that when he's there, he is confident and he is able to speak about the fact that he is not guilty. He did not kill those agents, and that this is a war that has been going on against indigenous people since the first settlers got here. So that will be happening in 2024. We have a couple of major art shows, one in Portland in March, and we hope to have one in Chicago in late April or early May. We still have about 30 pieces of Leonard's art, and so the people that will be getting these will be getting some of the last works that he has produced. Veranza went before the board, and with all hope and prayers of everybody, his sweat lodge brothers, people on the outside, and his family, the lawyers say, keep the faith. And Veranza has said to me, you know, one of these days, I'm going to get out and we're going to get on a train together and go across this country, because I am not going to fly. So you better be well, and because we're going to go and see all these friends of mine and the supporters. And he said, these webinars, he said, you have to let people know how much I love and respect them, and to thank them. He said, you know, you get this piece of mail and somebody said, oh, I was on a webinar and there was Mumia and he was speaking and there were all these people and they talked about you. And he said, you know, people will never understand how much one little letter will mean when you live in the size of a bathroom. He said, I have gotten some poetry, I have pictures, and he said, when I get out, I want people to know how much I thank them for their support. And for Leonard is adamant that he is not going to die inside. He is coming home, and his home is Turtle Mountain, North Dakota, a reservation very close to the Canadian border, where his brothers and sisters and some of his grandchildren live. And he is looking forward to that. He, like other elder prisoners, has diabetes. He was able to fight that, and he ended his diabetes. And then with all these lockdowns and this horrific food that give them, with no exercise, it has come back. And so now he is struggling with diabetes and elder people problems. Just because you're in prison does not mean that as you age, your body stays the same. So I want to thank everybody. You can go to Leonard's website, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. And you can go to the Jericho website and read about Veranza. And thank you so much for having us. He was so excited that this is going on. I had hoped to have a statement from him. He had started one, but he is also in a federal prison and in Butner, and they are locked down again. But he sings to everyone in the sweat lodge. So if you hear this music somewhere and it's in the wind or something, that's Veranza saying thank you. So I would say to everybody, thank you so much, and miigwech. And I knew Ed Poindexter, and now that he's an ancestor, I hope that the peace that he finds in the Star Nation with his comrades will take some of the brutality of his incarceration. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, and it was so great to visit with him. And all we can hope is that the Star Nation, and I know Safia will be there. Safia Bukhari will be there saying, welcome home, Jericho. Another comrade has joined us. So thank you. We will be having more information about Ed and what people can do to help his family. Miigwech.
Thank you so much for that, Paulette. Free Veranza now, free Leonard Peltier now, free Leonard, free Veranza, free them all, family. When we hear these stories, we understand how important it is to free these folks. Now is the time to get organized. Please click on those links and see how you can participate, how you can add on, how you can contribute, how you can donate to these funds, and how you can also support these ongoing campaigns. Next up, we're going to be talking about Kevin Rasheed Johnson. And we're going to have Shupavu, who was the General Secretary of the Revolutionary Intercommunal of the Black Panther Party, and Kevin's friend and comrade speak on his behalf. So whenever you're ready, Brother Santi, we'll get going with that.
My name is Shapavu Wakarima. I'm the General Secretary for the Revolutionary Intercommunal Black Panther Party. I'm also a friend and comrade of Kevin Rasheed Johnson, who serves as our Defense Minister. Rasheed is a longtime prison activist, revolutionary writer, and artist. On November 7th of this year, he was subjected to yet another retaliatory transfer back to Red Onion State Prison. This transfer is retaliatory in that it was in response to Johnson's numerous expose articles on the dehumanizing conditions and rampant abuse that occur in the Virginia Department of Corrections, its persistence in using long-term solitary confinement as a means of punishing and torturing prisoners, and his repeated pleas for medical care to address his prostate cancer and recently diagnosed congestive heart failure. Many who are familiar with Rasheed and his situation will remember that it was the same Department of Corrections that knowingly left Rasheed to languish with untreated prostate cancer for close to a year and a half before ever making any move to grant him treatment, which only came after widespread public outcry and support. On the above-mentioned date, after planting a weapon in Rasheed's cell at Sussex 1 State Prison, where he was being confined, a weapon that could have only been procured from off the street and transported into the prison by staff, Rasheed was gassed and shackled in cuffs much too tight for his wrists due to the swelling from his untreated heart condition. There was at the time and is still presently a medical order in his file for larger cuffs, which the staff ignored. Rasheed was then transported 7 hours and over 400 miles across the state to Red Onion State Prison. Since being back at Red Onion, Rasheed has been placed on a status known as restorative housing, a term that the Washington Post described as an Orwellian euphemism for the recently prohibited in the state of Virginia practice of long-term solitary confinement. This type of confinement has been shown to cause severe long-term harm, including inducing or worsening mental illnesses and even physically shrinking certain portions of the brain. Rasheed has had phone privileges, video and in-person visitation, email and written correspondence blocked by prison staff, and is being held on this status for a minimum of 2 years, which is why I am recording this message on his behalf. We are asking that all those who may hear or read these words, please reach out to the Virginia Department of Corrections, as well as the governor of the state of Virginia, and demand Rasheed's immediate release from restorative housing and the end of his being held incommunicado without phone, email, visitation, or access to written correspondence, and for him to have access to medical care for his ongoing and worsening health conditions. We are also demanding that Rasheed not be subjected to another out-of-state transfer, which he has also been threatened with. For information on who to contact and how to contact these prison officials, please visit Rasheed's website, rasheedmod.com, rasheedmod.com. I thank you for listening, and I urge you to support this effort. Dare to struggle, dare to win, all power to the people.
Yes, yes, all power to the people. We thank Kevin Rasheed Johnson's team for really putting that together. And again, the information will be available. Continue to make those calls. This is a very trying time for our brother, and we also need to have him freed. Next, we will have Sister Nabila, who will be speaking on behalf of the Imam Jamil Al-Amin campaign.
Yes, free them all. I need to be able to share my screen. That's possible. Okay. Just a second. All righty. Nothing. All right, so long live the spirit of our beloved grandsister, Chairman Fred Hampton, who was murdered and assassinated on December the 4th of 1969 by the racist Chicago police. So we want to always remember and give ashe to the spirit of Chairman Fred Hampton. So in this picture, you could just imagine his dynamic voice saying, "Free my brother, Rat Brown." You know, we know that our ancestors care for one another. The U.S. government has never forgave, nor have they forgotten H. Rat Brown, who's also currently known as Imam Jamil Al-Amin. So we have a picture here of him speaking out in his other days. And even though H-Rap's personality was calmed by his acceptance of Islam as his faith, he never stopped advocating for what is right. This is an excerpt of an article, I believe it was out of the Nation of Islam newspaper, and it says, "A Black liberation soldier needs help." During the 1960s and 1970s, Imam Jamil was one of the strongest voices for Black liberation and for a just new world order. And at that time, he was known as H. Rap Brown. He was a member of the Black Panther Party and also a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. While he was jailed in 1971, he accepted Islam and became a stalwart Muslim leader and community leader committed to having a healthy and whole community in Atlanta, Georgia, which had been ravaged by drugs and prostitution. He changed his name to Imam Jamil Al-Amin, and went to work building his community and reforming his neighborhood. Since 2007, Imam Jamil Al-Amin has been incarcerated at ADX Florence Supermax in Florence, Colorado. Now, this is a little old. This article is a little dated. He was tortured in ADX Florence Supermax. He was held 7 floors below ground in solitary confinement. He hadn't done anything to deserve that treatment, but because he was such a still a dynamic personality as a Muslim and as a leader in his Atlanta community. And then when he was sentenced to prison unjustly in 2000 in Georgia, he was still this dynamic person, and the brothers in there wanted him to be their leader, wanted him to be their imam. So as punishment just for being a good person and a likable person, he was sent to the federal penitentiary and held underground, 7 stories underground for years. He was very sick, so supporters worked towards getting him some medical care. So we did get him released to come to Pennsylvania, and he had medical care in Pennsylvania. And then he was put in another federal prison. I'll put it that way. So we're asking you to please contribute to the Imam's books, which properly known as commissary. And you can support him by either sending an money order. I don't have the exact address in Iowa, but that's just the way the federal government makes you deposit any kind of a contribution to an inmate's account. It has to go to this address in Iowa. But IJAN, which is Imam Jamil Action Network, has a way for you to be able to contribute to his commissary account through IJAN instead of having to send the money order to Iowa. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I sent money to Iowa. I don't know if the Imam ever got that money. So you might want to contact IJAN at 1-833-999-IJAN. The conditions in the federal penitentiary where he is now, if you remember, who's the man that just got well, I know the murderer's name is Darren something, police officer that held his neck on one of our brothers and set off world storm. Well, he's in the same prison with Imam Jamil, and of course some people got to him, and because of that, the prison has been on lockdown. It's just coming out of lockdown now. Imam Jamil is doing as well as he can be expected, but there's still a lot of tensions in the facility. So we hope that, and pray that Allah takes good care of our Imam until we can get him out of what we call the sijin, which is the prison. So there's, it's a little strange thing. This Fannie Willis, she promised to conduct an integrity investigation into Imam Jamil's case. She never did. So we're asking people to write to the Attorney General, Fannie Willis, at 141 Pryor Street Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303, or you can call 404-612-4000, or you can write to customer service at fultoncountygeorgia.gov, or I should say customer service at fultoncountyga.gov. And we're asking you to please write to Imam Jamil. He'd love to hear from you. He always does love to hear from people. To write to him directly, you have to make sure you put his, as they call it, their number, which is 999-74-555. He's at USP Tucson, TUCSON. It's a U.S. penitentiary at P.O. Box 24550, Tucson, Arizona, 85734. When I started out with Chairman Fred, when people get close to you, they are dangerous. So a lot of times the people that get closest to you, can do you some harm. So somebody that was close to Imam Jamil over the past, I say, 3 to 5 years, we've all been giving to his defense fund, not knowing that someone was, misusing the funds. So it's very unfortunate that many of our donations did not reach the Imam for his benefit. So the defense fund is totally under Imam Jamil's control at this time, and we are still asking that people make contributions because he's still fighting his case. They have testimony from the person that did the crimes. We have proof that the one of the deputies who was shot said, I shot the man that shot me, but Imam Jamil has never been shot. But what they did was harassed him and chased him into another state, and then they captured him and took him through this whole ordeal. As a matter of fact, when he was convicted, so-called convicted, for the crime, he was initially had a warrant for his arrest over some traffic violation, and that was found to be illegal. That the initial traffic stop was found to be illegal, but they went on and found him guilty for murder related to the traffic stop at the same time. So, he's still fighting his case, and we do pray that he is successful. Of course, we want him out of there. We want him out before, like many of our heroes, they found when the system finally lets them go, they don't suffer all this elder abuse, and they only last 4 to 6 months once they get out. So we definitely don't want to see that happen to anybody, and much less to H. Rap Brown, also known as Imam Jamil. So contributions can be made to his defense fund only through Zelle at 919-628-9146. And we thank you so much. Imam Jamil has a newsletter that comes out periodically, and he has made a prayer for all of his supporters, and he thanks you greatly. He asks that the Creator look over you, take care of you, and please continue in your good deeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Nabila, for that information and just letting us know what's the latest with our our brother. We continue to fight for his freedom, and we will continue to share this information out. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.
You can stop sharing too, Mama Nabila, as well.
Okay.
So next we have the niece of our dear departed Ed Poindexter. She will be spending some time with us to speak more. And again, we continue to lift up the voice of Ed and all that he has been able to contribute to society in his time with us. Erica?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
I'm Erica Payne, Edward Poindexter's niece. It's my mother's brother. And I really thank you guys for always including us in this powerful message. Yes, he did. He was freed just a couple days ago. It's so weird because I'm like in a fog right now, like all the things have been going on. But me and my mom was able to send him home. I mean, he was able to acknowledge us when we went to see him. He put his hand out for us to touch him. He even cried when we left. He opened his eyes twice. He was able to see me. He was able to see my mom. And I kissed his face and told him to take my kisses with him on his journey and to go ahead and rest, that he's done his work. Because my uncle was the most courageous person. He had been offered several opportunities to say that he did the horrific crime in order to be freed or to tell whoever did that. And he refused, him and Mondo Wilanga, because they were not going to make him say something that he did not do. There is so many things that mimic what me and my family went through, listening to everybody that has been on this panel. So there is nothing short of that it is a conspiracy, and they have a cookie cutter way of setting up our brothers. I mean, they're doing the same thing to everybody across the nation, and it is amazing to watch that it's able to continue. But I pray for all political prisoners. My uncle's memory will not be silenced because Nebraska is hoping that the death of Mondo Wilanga and Edward Poindexter will recuse them from their illegal activities and keeping him incarcerated. I was told by a guard the day that I went to see my uncle pass. Well, I didn't know he was passing, but the day that I went to see my uncle, I was told by a guard that the FBI basically freed them, like recused them of whatever they said they have done. Well, killing a police officer. And he still spent the 53 years. When we went to go see him, they threw away my visitation forms. Like the first time I sent a visitation form, they sent it back to that because I didn't check the little box saying I wasn't a criminal. Come on, you guys. They were going to run my social. They were going to run my ID. I mean, and my grandmother who helped raise me agreed to have our house tapped, our phone line tapped. So they know that I wasn't a criminal. Okay, fine. So I sent a second one. The second one they said they didn't get. So when they told me that my uncle was on hospice, I woke up the next day. I told my mom to get dressed and that we were going to go to the prison and I was going to sit in the lobby until they let me see my uncle. And you know what? It wasn't even that hard. They let us in. They were very nice to us, but don't they owe us that? They kind of owe us that. So it's kind of hard for me to I thank them because that is I'm grateful to the universe for allowing that to happen for me, because I do understand that there was a higher power that allowed us to be able to do that and to go and help him along his journey, to make him comfortable, to go along his journey. I'm not going to stop. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. We're going to continue to bring up his name, Mondo's name, we're going to continue to, I mean, because they owe our family an apology. I don't even know what that apology looks like, but they do owe. They owe. And, you know, just keep fighting like you guys. And we should continue to say, free them all. I mean, free them all. They set rules that they don't follow. They set rules that they don't follow is my problem. I mean, there was evidence thrown away from my uncle, and to admit it to us and still not allow a new trial. They, the person they said called and said that my uncle did this. They did a voice analysis. It wasn't him. In all of that, I listened to Miss Joanna Fernandez. She mimicked what happened to us. And listening to it, I am so sorry. I can't say her name. Kissay, what was her name? I'm trying to see it.
Kissay?
Yes. She literally was like mimicking how the family, because my Uncle Edward was my father figure, and he did that from prison. That's powerful. We got to talk to him all the time. We got to visit him every week. My grandmother was even able to bring cookies, and then they just stopped it. And then my uncle, I don't know what happened, but we all know the threats and things that happened because they used to drive by my grandma and click their guns at her and things of that nature. She started donating to the police union so that she could put the sticker on her front door. She thought that was be safety for her. My uncle told us to stop visiting him because when we left, it made it so hard for him. When I saw him in November, his legs were black from the knee down. They were black, and he told me his heel came off. Mimicking that they're not taking care of our elders, our elderly people in the prison. How did he get that bad? And you are in control of his diet, his medicine, you're in control. So how did that happen? Then they amputated his leg and didn't notify the family. How we found out is a journalist went to visit him, and then she called me and was like, your uncle's leg is amputated. And then when he went on hospice, like I said, I believe that it is a God thing, that a lawyer that I solicited that helped him years ago, that agreed to help me and my mom, went to try to get him to sign a commutation thing, I can't say it, I'm sorry. You know what I'm trying to say. And he wasn't responsive. That's how we found out he got put on hospice, a lawyer. They never communicated to us. So if it wasn't for the universe, he probably would have died without us. Because once that person emailed me and said he was on hospice, I got up the next morning, told my mom to get dressed, and we are on our way. And that's why I was able to tell him to go ahead and rest and go home with the ancestors. And we will continue our fight from here. And again, I thank you guys for your time. And we just got to continue to fight.
Yes, we have to continue to fight. We thank you for your talk here, Sister Erica. We know this is a very hard time, but we're so grateful that you were able to come on and speak for your family during this time. We will continue to uplift the work of Ed Poindexter. And now we are coming towards the end. We do have one more political prisoner here. We do have Kwame Shakur to come on. However, there is a count they're conducting on the inside. So we may have to give it a few minutes. His partner is here to patch him in. But in the meantime, I think, Gabe, we can go to some announcements and then we'll have Kwame to close us out. And on the talk of announcements, as most folks may know, this weekend we're having, there is a hybrid event that's happening in Philadelphia with the Kamal Siddiqui Interfaith Committee. And it's happening, as we can see, the dates are here. And folks can check out the Church of the Overcomer Facebook page, YouTube page. And this was also something that Kisise spoke to that will lead into the larger February event for Brother Kamau next year. So check this out while it's happening. We are also having tomorrow, and this is just also in person, but there is a Zoom element. We are having the holiday card writing event. If I can get, okay, there we go. So we're having the Send the Love Through the Walls card writing event. That's happening tomorrow. I believe this is an annual event with the Resistance in Brooklyn. And we will get that Zoom link available for folks who are not able to be there in person out on the chat. And next week, Saturday, as mentioned earlier, we are having the special feature from the About the People group that's part of the larger Spirit of Mandela Coalition. There is a special feature on Mumia. It's the second installment, and this smaller piece will be premiering in Harlem, New York, next week, Saturday at 7 p.m. at the Maisels Theater Documentary Center. And not only are we premiering this, there will also be a welcome home event whereby a number of young men have since returned home after the unjust raids, military style raids on various Nitro homes in the Bronx a few years ago, and many of them are now coming home. So there will be a welcome home party that goes on later into the night with a DJ and food and everything. So we're having a two-part there, again, in the city. And for folks in the area, feel free to come out and be part of what we're having. And also, I think that's it on the announcements. No, that's not it. We have a larger piece of an announcement. I'll send this over to Gabe for Mumia's 70th next year. So this is it. We are beginning to put the details together. Just stay tuned as we continue to plan this out. As folks may know, next year, April 24th, Mumia is turning 70, and we want to make this not only a big celebration, but more so to let the system know that we are going to free Mumia and get him home. So we're just putting this out there from now that we're planning on this, and folks feel welcome, feel free to get involved and help us make this happen.
Let me add on to that too, Sophia. This is a major, major, major part of the conversation, folks. You know, Mumia Abu-Jamal, April 24th, will be 70 years of age. At that point, he'll be going on, 43 years of incarceration, of imprisonment in these cages behind the walls, multiple decades of support, strategizing, organizing, mobilizing, galvanizing, sharing, signing petitions, marching in the streets. We have to bring our brother Mumia Abu-Jamal home, like all these elders we're talking about today, home. Please save the date, April 24th. It actually falls on a Wednesday next week. And we are completing and finalizing and preparing and planning details right now as we speak, as we actually have been all fall, for this next huge date that will be on his birthday for 2024. We understand that even internationally, people are already preparing, and we want to make sure that everything is in alignment for this special day for Mumia. And not special in the sense of just turning 70, but people also want to acknowledge, particularly next year, it's going to be an election year, a political year in the streets and the communities and on the social media, on our television screens, the importance of recognizing the ways in which this hyper-capitalist carceral state has destroyed and devastated completely multiple lives, multiple generations of leaders, of people, and of communities. And that was one of the primary areas where Mumia Abu-Jamal's life and leadership and legacy spoke volumes. His eloquence and ability to enunciate our condition is so clear, and probably never going to be more clearer then next year, when we continue to receive message upon message upon message saying that these so-called leaders in our government or the government are planning to do this, that, and the third for our citizenry, knowing that it is all lies and it is all fallacy. And so we celebrate Mumia's life, we celebrate Mumia's courage, we celebrate his bravery, his boldness, but also we celebrate his humanity. We celebrate his personhood, we celebrate his joy, his laughter, we celebrate his love of people, his love of music, his love of learning, his love of writing, his love of providing commentary, his love of us. And so we hope that you will put that date, really that week, on your calendar. We hope that in the forthcoming month or so, we'll be able to share out more information about what the 70th will ultimately mean. And so please hit the date for that weekend, for that week, and more to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Yes, please continue to do just that. And we're in time for Brother Kwame, who is out in Indiana. He is now on with us and will be patched in. Welcome, Brother Kwame.
I'm out here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Sister Sophia. First and foremost, I just want to thank you and Mumia's campaign and everybody who put this together for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this platform and speak to the people. So I'm a part of many different organizations and formations, but today I want to take this time to speak on behalf of the work that we're doing with Prison Life Matter and Spirit of Mandela, and introduce the people who aren't familiar with Prison Life Matter and the work we're doing to our short-term and long-term aims and objectives and goals, and how that relates to the overall prison movement and the outside movement and struggle against capitalism and colonialism. And so with Prison Life Matter, we started in 2015, 2016 in the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I got a call from the general of the Black Guerrilla Army, and they seen the work that I was doing within the outside movement with the New African Liberation Collective and building a united front through NALC and Frogenon to help rebuild and structure the New African Independence movement by getting all of our top leadership and principal thinkers to come together and get us back to the roots of movement building. And so I began to take that same concept within the prison movement when sitting down to write out the mission statement for Prison Lives Matter. And as I began to write it, I was realizing, like, you know what I'm saying, we have dozens and dozens of prison abolition organizations all around the country. And through my study and analysis of our struggle dating back to the prison movement in the late 60s and early 70s, in the times of Comrade George and the Black Panther Party and the BLA, what I was realizing that in this new era, in this new movement, what we were lacking was concrete, tangible infrastructure and programs to help develop cadre so that the people who are joining this new movement understand what it is that the prison movement was built upon. And the reason that at first I disagreed with us using the term Prison Lives Matter because it was too similar to Black Lives Matter. And at the time, a lot of people were reaching out to Black Lives Matter because they had the ability to mass organize our people like we had never seen in decades. And they were refusing to get involved with the prison movement. They were refusing to lend their aid and their support and their resources to us. But then I got to thinking, no, Prison Lives Matter is the perfect term to identify our struggle based on that alone. Do Black Lives Matter behind the prison walls of America? Do Prison Lives Matter is the question that we had to ask even the outside movement that was mobilizing at that time. And so I just immediately shifted gears in how we would build and structure a Prison Lives Matter movement. And so Prison Lives Matter soon became a united front based on the teachings and the blueprint of my comrade and mentor, Jamil Al-Amin, which he laid out for Furlan in his book, We Are On Liberators. And so Prison Lives Matter is based on a national coordinating committee that exists of most of this nation's leading political prisoners, ex-political prisoners, and POWs, as well as our outside abolition organizations that's working in unison and conjunction with outside international organizations against imperialism and U.S. capitalism. And so one of our short-term goals is turning that National Coordinating Committee into ROCs, or Regional Organizing Committees. And so what we've been doing for the past 3 to 4 years is trying to establish statewide chapters all across the country where we have movement activity going on, and trying to bridge the gap between our outside organizations and connecting them with our members with Prison Lives Matter on the inside, who are writing to our P.O. box in Chicago saying that they want to start a Prison Lives Matter chapter and help establish political education courses and cadre development programs on the inside, turning these slave camps into cadre training centers and revolutionary universities. Also, with this being a united front and a vehicle for decolonization, we want to make sure that we're giving the people the proper tools to see the direct connection, the dialectical materialism of cause and effect of our socio-economic issues and conditions that we're dealing with as Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples to the rise and the existence of the prison industrial slave complex. And there's no separate movement. With the prison movement and the outside Black liberation movement, the Chicano and Indigenous liberation movement is all one struggle. And that we got to unite and bring our forces together. You know what I'm saying? And so we're trying to use this Prison Lives Matter movement to connect all of our campaigns. And that's what this summer, when we had our tri-state webinar and panel discussion in Oakland, California, Chicago, and New York City, the Prison Lives Matter Liberate Our Elders webinar and panel was about uniting Mumia's campaign, Kamal Siddiqui's campaign, Jamil Al-Amin's campaign, My Freedom campaign, getting all of our leading progressive attorneys, law students, medical professionals, and movement builders to all come together and figure out what are we going to do moving into 2024 that's going to separate the work from what we've been doing the past 30 to 35 years since the fall of the movement, or what we call the high tide. And what Brother Gabe was just saying, like, looking at what's going on with the political climate in this country going into next year, we can't continue to depend on the colonizer and on the oppressor and U.S. politics to change our social and economic and educational reality. We have to begin to decolonize and create programs that's going to meet the immediate needs of the people. And so the way that Prison Lives Matter and Spirit of Mandela is trying to do that is building state by state, region by region, unification, tangible infrastructure that will allow us to take our struggle to the next level. And when we talk about the campaign and the call to liberate our elders, you know what I'm saying, we can't continue to depend on the courts and on the system to bring Mumia home, to bring our elders home. We see what just happened with Matulu. We see what just happened with Michelle McGee, when we're dependent on the colonial apparatuses, on compassionate release, on parole boards. It's not working. It's a contradiction. You know what I'm saying? Like, so with Prison Lives Matter and Spirit of Mandela, one of our main calls to action right now is to develop a People's Senate where we have the ability to govern ourselves and work in conjunction with our international allies that are willing to come to our aid and to our assistance. But they're waiting on the Black, Brown, and Indigenous nations and tribes over here to step up and stand on our international human rights, on the Declaration of Human Rights, and start acting like a nation and a group of people who truly wants to be free. And so one of our other things right now that we're using to tangibly create that is last year I purchased a building in Indiana in my hometown. There used to be a Black-owned grocery store and a restaurant, and we've been renovating and remodeling that building to turn it into a national organizing hub and a training center for our law students that's working with the Prison Life Matter lawyers and lawful committee, families of movements, of political prisoners and movement builders to be able to travel up here and post up for a weekend or a week and get the hands-on tools and training and development to be able to go back to their state and their region and implement the People Senate, become senators, become representatives and ambassadors to the People Senate and to our international human rights and our cry against genocide. And so what my call to action would be for everybody who's listening is to contact us, to go on to spiritofmandela.org, to go to supportprisonlifematter.org, or contact us on social media at PLM_national and help us build these regional chapters, help us build these statewide chapters, help us open up P.O. boxes in your state and in your region to help connect with the political prisoners and the politicized individuals that's in your area that want to do this work. And we really hope that, the people of Philly are willing to answer that call and step up. And we know the people's there, the organizations are there. It's about us uniting and sharing our resources and our network for our common goals to liberate our people and liberate our elders. And like I always say, from day one of us creating Prison Life Matter, we can't have a Prison Life Matter movement in this country or anywhere in the world without including the campaign to bring our brother Mumia home. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. It's always a blessing to hear. It's always a blessing to hear you speak with us. Various meetings, able to behind the scenes. So we thank you again for that. We have tried to list some of the links that were mentioned just a while ago, so we'll continue to list those out. Again, we thank everyone for joining with us, for being with us. We thank you. Let me try to go down the list. Mama Pam, we thank the reading of the poems from Mama Julia out in Europe, and our dear brother who was killed in Palestine. We want to continue to thank the About the People crew that's part of the larger Spirit of Mandela campaign for doing the Who is Mumia video. We want to thank our dear sister Nancy Mansour. We want to continue to thank and uplift the freedom for Mumia. So we thank you, Dr. Johanna Fernandez, for continuing to fight and being able to break down what's happening legally and being in the streets. We want to thank Dr. Ricardo Alvarez for his sum up of what's happening with Mumia. We want to continue to thank the various political prisoner campaigns that spoke with us today. We had Ann Lam, we had Kasese Siddiqui, we had Paulette, we also had Kevin Rasheed Johnson's team that were able to send us in a recording, and Ed Poindexter's niece, Erica, and we also had Sister Nabila on Jamil Al-Amin, and of course, we just heard from Kwame Shakur himself. I hope I'm not missing anyone, but we want to thank all the speakers, all the organizers, everyone that has helped to push out this event today. There's so much happening today in other areas in Europe and other, the West Coast, and on this day when unfortunately Mumia was captured. We continue to fight and fight. Stay tuned for what's happening next year for Mumia's 70th. As folks know, we cannot continue to do this work without some funding. So folks are free to check out the Mobilization 4, as in the number 4, Mobilization 4 Mumia.com site. You can go right on there and click on donate and share that out. Folks want to get involved and get more understanding and help out in whatever way. You can email us at bringmumiahome@gmail.com. Continue to share the socials, continue to connect the struggles, and we continue to fight and say free Palestine. Gabe?
What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
Free 'em all.
And free Mumia Abu Jamal, y'all. Thank you so much, y'all. Be blessed, be safe. Let's stay in the fight, y'all. Peace and power. One love.
Peace.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free them all, free the land.
Free them all.